Thank you.
I didn't want to answer the question directly.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. Right, the last Blue Talk for today. We heard it right at the start, a lot of conversations about how the cargo owner, the charterer, is going to play a much more important role as we go through this decarbonisation. It's the responsibility they have for actually directing and forcing, in some cases, the shipping industry to make changes. We heard what Mr. Forrest said that he was proposing to do in terms of creating the dynamics of a transition within this industry. So this panel session, we're going to actually have a discussion about what we see those cargo owners, those first movers, effectively, and within that industry start to do and to play a role. So I'm going to introduce the panel in a second, but first let me introduce Elisabeth Munck from Ikea. Now, I don't need to describe Ikea, I don't think. If I do, I'll ask you when you landed from Mars. Basically, I think everybody knows who Ikea is. Oh, I say Ikea, by the way, not Ikea. Some people pronounce it differently. I think it's Ikea.
Ikea in Swedish.
Yeah, in Swedish,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, please, Elisabeth, take us away.
Thank you so much. Now I'll see if this works. Yes, it does. So, we see that momentum is building, and I would like to share some optimism. Because we see that low and zero emission solutions are being deployed across all of our markets. And now I'm talking not only about shipping, I'm talking about end-to-end transportation, from the suppliers to the warehouses and stores. And the solutions, they might look a bit different, dependent on where in the world you are, but still more and more options are available. And the discussions are maturing, collaborations are forming, momentum is building, and it's happening now. Our customers expect us to be a responsible brand. And this goes across our full supply chain, from the materials that we use, the production, transportation, the products used at home, recycling, upcycling. And our customers expect that we take action, and our co-workers want it. We want to feel that we are part of driving positive change, and our planet needs it. It needs concrete actions with real results. And I would like to stay a little bit in this picture. This is our 2030 roadmap when it comes to our end-to-end goods flow. We have an important milestone when it comes to the goods flow of IKEA in 2030, on our way to net zero. Back in 2017, we decided on our decarb target to reduce the average emission from any transport that we do by minus 70% in 2030. And this is also how far we have come here in the middle, as you can see. And if we look year to date, the last figure I have is that we are now down minus 41% of the average emission from any transportation. And in these colorful boxes here on the right, the left-hand side, you can see the different solutions in order of magnitude that have led to the results where we are now. So it's about increased fuel efficiency, enhanced equipment utilization, increased fill rates in trucks and containers, using more biofuels, more flows from road to rail, short sea and barge. We now have more than 50% of our land ton kilometers on intermodal solutions. It's about optimizing our networks, reducing empty runs, more renewable electricity. So it's about really working. The results come from really working with efficiency measures and moving away from fossil fuels. Should also be remembered that during this period, we are working a lot of taking the step and understanding of how to make the full zero-emission transformation, which is not evident yet. And now we have 5 years to reach our milestone in 2030. And on the right-hand side here, these are the aggregated plans from all of our different business teams across all our markets on how they see. They have developed detailed roadmaps based on what are the current available solutions, what are the solutions that are around the corner, and what are the solutions that we need to collaborate to make happen. But they all have detailed roadmaps and plans on how to get to 2030. And up to 2030, you can see that biofuels still play an important role, but this is really the period where we see that EVs, hydrogen solutions, e-fuels will really start to take off. And we will further then increase intermodality, and we will further work on capturing efficiency measures. So we don't have any trucks or locomotives or vessels. To reach the targets, we are completely dependent on the service providers that we work with. So we need to work together to collaborate and co-create the solutions. And it's all about people making this happen. And we just released this year's decarb catalog, and this is where we collect good examples, decarb examples across our transport and supply chain, and solutions that are built on local level with local stakeholders. And it showcases bigger and smaller actions that are all leading to the results that we see. So we want to do this. We are doing this every year to inspire and engage and learn from each other. And importantly, this is not a sustainability project or a sustainability department. It is about people working in the business, taking the lead to make this happen, to drive the improvements. Because the decarb solutions, they happen in the business and they happen at local level. So now we need to keep the beat with strong collaborations, and in order to reach the 2030 target, to continue the path that we're on, be very focused, very persistent. This is how we work. It's about really amplifying the momentum and accelerate the number of good things that are already happening. And we are learning every day, solving for the future, and it's really the time to be in solution mode, to move away from the path that will deepen the climate crisis, but also to be optimistic, to visualize what are we heading towards, where is it that we want to be. Because it's not only to steer away from crisis, but it's also about capturing the opportunities in creating a zero-emission goods flow, to being cleaner air, create new jobs, attract new young people to the industry, be efficient and cut out cost across the end-to-end supply chains to build stronger economies, and to work towards something that is better than we have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth. Just before I bring the panel on, just a quick question on that. How easy is it, as a large brand name, to put pressure on your suppliers of transport and logistics? How easy is it as a brand, as a big name, to put that sort of pressure to try and get them to sort of start making changes on your behalf so your Scope 3 emissions reduce? Mm-hmm.
First of all, I don't really like the word putting pressure on, because it's really about collaboration. And I mean, in our supply chain, we have long-term relations with the service providers and suppliers that we are working with. When we started this agenda back in 2017 on the transport side, I mean, if we would have said we only want zero emission solution, we would not have been able to transport anything. So it's about how can we, together with our service provider, create the solutions. And here it's really about slicing the elephant and find solution at the local level that actually works. And the solutions might look different, but it's really about co-creating. And the service provider, working with service providers that kind of share this direction.
Yeah. And do you also make sure that, because this is something I saw with energy efficiency on ships, and I'm not sure if this applies in your case, but ship owners and operators had to be careful how they selected the solutions to make sure that they complemented each other. And I was wondering, when you're looking at the collaborative work, you had that list of measures that you started to take and the measures that you're going to move up until 2030. I was just curious whether there was any sort of examination of whether any of them would negatively impact each other in some way.
No, usually they don't. The opposite. I mean, we need to use less energy in the world. We need to become more energy efficient. So our thinking is that it's not just to do exactly what we're doing now and then just buy a green solution. In that transition, it's also about capturing what can we do better? How can we work more efficiently? How can we work with the most efficient vessels or trains or whatever it is to reduce the actual amount that is needed? Yeah. It's also the economy, the affordability in this. How do you mitigate the additional, find new ways of working?
Good. Can I invite our panelists up onto the stage now, please? Now, joining me here now is Hynne from Coca-Cola Eurpacific Partners, Mette Asmussen from the World Economic Forum, and Lars Erik Marcussen, Heidelberg Cement. Now, clearly we've got two consumer-focusing brands, one which is more of a business-to-business brand, bulk transportation of cement, and World Economic Forum, obviously everybody knows who the World Economic Forum here, but Mette here has been working with the kind of like First Movers Coalition, and just so she's going to be helping us kind of understand how first movers actually find the routes that they can actually take that actually going to, they see the benefit, how you find the benefit. But let me go, I'm going to go to the business side here, please, on Heidelberg Cement, because as Elisabeth said, and I'm sure Pery will say the same, you know, their customers are starting to demand it. Your customers probably don't.
Well, some of them do, and we're pretty lucky that our customers, at least we like to think, that they take their decisions not so much by emotions, but more by spreadsheets, being business to business. But our customers are pretty much the whole society. So we have municipalities, we have cities, we have, we provide heavy building materials for building hospitals. And especially in Northern Europe, you see that more and more of the official government-led infrastructure projects have an element of sustainability in it. So I would say our customers, like yours, our customers demand it and are starting to demand it. Luckily, we are still in a place where some of them can actually afford to pay more as well, but not much more, definitely not much more. And we're looking at not only making things green, like you said, we can't do things the same way. We have to change the way, we have to be more efficient, and then keep the cost down. So it's a little bit easier on the business-to-business side because we're in a more fragmented market. But I think it's still, at the same time, it's the collaboration that was mentioned, and it's the fact that we're using our purchasing power for good.
Tell me a little bit about your ocean logistics network that you have.
Okay, we produce cement, pretty simple, and we transport it primarily by sea in Scandinavia. We have a fleet of 9 cement ships on time charter, pretty big ones, up to 10,000 tons. And we control them, and we have to use them as best possible. Now, we could easily sit back and say, we're doing our part on shore. We can cut our emissions by carbon capture, like we're doing with Northern Lights in Brevik, and we can just leave everything to the shipping industry. But we need to take the responsibility, we need to, as cargo owners, step in and say, we're going to collaborate with our suppliers, with the shipping industry, with the ship owners, and give them the long-term stability so that they can actually take, in some cases, a little bit more risk to transition into methanol, for example. And our logistics setup is so pretty simple. Society needs cement and concrete, and we need ships to transport it. And like you pointed out, the planet needs us to do it in a different way. So cement stands for about 7% of all the world's CO2 emissions when we produce it. And then we transport it on top of that again. So for us, taking a natural, it's a natural thing to take this position that we will do our part. We will be a good customer for the good shipping companies who want to invest in good technology.
How are you making that change? What sort of vessels are you looking at then? You mentioned the methanol, but
Yep.
I mean, you're therefore prepared to put a bet on a more expensive ship?
Yes. Well, we are. Yes, the ship is definitely more expensive. We're very, very happy that we received some funding from the Norwegian NOx fund. Enova in Norway doesn't touch methanol for some strange reason. But we received enough money to take the original risk of being first mover down a notch. We're also offering a 10-year time charter on this vessel, and it's
that's important because I raised that discussion in the earlier panel session about the length of the offtake agreement for fuels, but here this is the length of the charter party to use that ship, which is going to cost more for the ship owner.
I mean, we've been making cement for 150 years. We're going to be making cement 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now as well. So why should we only rely on 1 or 2 year contracts and trying to get that last euro cent cheaper? In the long run, that has decimated the bottom lines of so many shipping companies, so many transport companies, that over the past many years, there has been no investment in new technology. So that's the problem with not following up with a long-term focus. And none of our companies here, and especially not the World Economic Forum, can afford to think 1 year at a time. So why do we make transport contracts only 1 year at a time? So we give a 10-year contract. We may even extend it after that, 10 years more, 10 years more. And that means that we collaborate, like you said, with the ship owners, and we take our part of the risk, and all of a sudden, it doesn't cost more. So I'm pretty happy to say that when we're looking at the rising cost of using diesel against the known cost of the new ship using methanol, the new ship is cheaper per ton transported over the first 3 years. The new methanol-powered ship is cheaper per ton transported than a comparable diesel ship. All of a sudden, it's a no-brainer.
Hey, let's turn to Coca-Cola.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about how you see your logistics or your transport transitioning. How are you? What are you investing in?
Well, I'd like to just put it into a bit of a bigger perspective. Obviously, as you started in 2017, we also started with our This is Forward action plan on sustainability in 2017 and been kind of with very ambitious targets at that time. Now we're in a phase where we are resetting, readjusting, getting more kind of a reality check on where we are. So we managed a lot on our ambitions towards 2030, 30% reduction and net zero by 2040. And then obviously now we are really looking in deep diving into how we can continue the journey that we're on and really leading the way forward in our industry as a responsible brand. Everybody's looking at us and expect us to do more. So when it comes to logistics and transport, I guess looking at our big footprint, it's a smaller part of it. But still, it's important. We need to reduce emissions through the value chain and in all key areas. So for us, we produce 80% of what we sell in Norway, but we import 20% finished goods from Europe, and that comes from Rotterdam to Oslo. Since 2015, we've moved everything from shore to sea, to ocean-based. So 99% is now ocean-based from Rotterdam to Oslo. So we are now in that dialogue to see how can we make that corridor from Rotterdam to Oslo Harbor and then up to Lørenskog, where we have our facility or our site, a green corridor, basically. So we are definitely looking into that. We have a tender ongoing, starting off on early 26, where obviously delivering on our sustainability goals will be key for the assessment of the participants in that tender. So it's a small one, but it's important for us as being kind of going through the full value chain, seeing how we can reduce our emissions. We from 24 to 26, we will be investing 400 million euros in sustainability initiatives, or investing in new materials, new technologies.
This in Norway or globally?
No, that's for our business, yeah. But just to put it into perspective, then, so obviously packaging is one of our key emission factors. A lot of that money is spent into recycled materials, circular economy for packaging, but also a significant amount goes into new technology, new solutions, also when it comes to transport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the first movers, first of all, then we'll go into discussion about how first movers are facilitating and creating second movers sort of comfort for change. But tell me a little bit about the First Movers Coalition.
Yes, and as you've noticed, I'm not a cargo owner. I'm at the World Economic Forum. We work with around 800 of the biggest companies, looking very much, as you also said, like we can't just look at tomorrow. We have to look much further ahead. And luckily, a lot of these companies are super brave of actually doing that. So one of the things that we've been working with since 2021, and I was very pleased to see both Eurpacific and Fortescue on the stage earlier with Secretary Pery, is something called the First Movers Coalition. It's essentially a coalition of around 100 companies, 18 of those being within shipping, across the value chain within shipping. So it goes from Amazon, the cargo owner, all the way to a segment of bulk, car carriers, and container. And the idea behind that is essentially how do you use the procurement power to actually send valid demand signals throughout the value chain to, on the very end, scale up on fuels, but also the cargo owner side of that is sending a demand signal towards the maritime service providers. So we look at it in a bit of a way that the first movers they're leaning in, they're basically saying, okay, so we're willing to take a risk here. The transition will not happen though before we have those fast followers coming along. So the first movers are both really taking a chance, but they're also leading the way. And as a next step, we need the fast followers to be as how do you say, like as stringent on that demand signal, so we can actually lift that off. I wanted to just note on another initiative that we run at the forum, which is the CEO Climate Leaders. And the reason why I want to mention is because 130 of these, also very brave companies, are working specifically with Scope 3 emissions. So all of the companies on stage here are actually part of that. Combined, 130 companies account for about 10% of global emissions. 87% of that is Scope 3 emission divided between downstream and upstream. And it says a lot about how important it is to really solve for the Scope 3 emissions and what the role of cargo owners is in that journey.
Is there a lot more, with that then, is there a lot more work by the cargo owners in measuring their Scope 3 emissions? I know there are some sort of European regulations that stipulate if you're a certain size, and I'm just curious about the granularity that they may have and just how much they actively get their Scope 3 emissions and actively respond to the data that they get.
I definitely think the role of the transparency that we can get in the value chain will also increase the decision that you and I make, right? And when we increase the decision power we make, we also make it easier for the dear cargo owners up here, and that will increase the demand signal towards the value. I'm all about how can we actually bridge a little bit across the value chain. So before, when I mentioned First Movers Coalition, there's an idea behind having from Amazon to Maersk in that coalition, because collaboration within the maritime sector is super important. But we're actually also at a crossroad where collaboration across all of these sectors is kind of our next step. And I think a lot of the speakers up here would agree to that now we also need to look at how do we not only decarbonize within the maritime sector, but work with other adjacent sectors. And we're already getting there. Like, it's already something that's underway, but that needs to scale up a lot more in the coming years.
You mentioned the first movers and the second movers. I've just got, have we started to see the second movers? And they probably don't want to admit they're second movers, but have you started to see a sort of second wave of companies that are being a lot more proactive in accounting for their logistics or scope 3 emissions? Has that begun? Has that second wave begun?
So I've worked in the maritime industry, like in public sector, private sector, and now in a non-profit the last 11 years, and I definitely saw a change throughout that period. But the reasoning why I also mentioned our CEO climate leaders before was exactly that reason, right? Because like those are still the leaders, but we do see that there's a change generally in, it's not only the big companies anymore, right?
Yeah.
And for them to start working with their suppliers, that's also part of that fast followers segment. And then, without going into one of the topics that will also be on the blue talks later, is obviously policy and regulation is now also coming along. I still think that the first movers will be going beyond what the policy floor is.
Policy does tend to be seen as a sort of minimum, doesn't it? And you expect leaders to be
exactly. So I think
the
policy, like without going into detail, the policy that we will have adopted hopefully in IMO in October, that will set a very good foundation, but it leaves a lot of room still for first movers and for companies to be brave, and for industry-led action. So in my world, that's not a bad thing, because it's better to have a global policy that has a good ambition than a only regional policy that can't get us as far, especially in shipping. So I have, just to come back to an easy answer to you, I have faith that the fast followers are coming along. But I'm also optimistic by...
Good. Per, you really say?
I'm just reflecting a bit on that, because I think we've been really a first mover in our key areas, investing a lot, driving at getting support from the board, from the executive leadership team to make the investments, because we do believe that's the right thing to do also locally. But then seeing that, as I mentioned now, it's a complex now next phase where we're taking the low-hanging fruits, now going into the more complex territory. And then we need to adjust a bit and see, because the gap between being a first mover and the next level are increasing, and then we need to see, do we get the payback on being so far ahead, or do we need to kind of adjust to accept them to move forward?
Isn't it? Do you get the financial advantage? Do you get the economic advantage of being a first mover, or is it a hit as a first mover? You know you're going to take, but you've got the strength in the business to weather that potential hit. Maybe Elisabeth, could you?
Yeah, I think this is about the name of the conference, future-proofing your business, and it's also about future cost avoidance. I mean, we do believe this is the direction. We are heading there. There's no doubt about it. This is what we're doing. It's in our strategic direction. So we need to do it. It's about how you do it in a smart way. There are many different pathways to the future, and it's also about understanding what makes sense and how should you do it. And of course, it will come at initial investments, some of it, but what can we do better to actually take some of that cost out, to work better across our supply chain, new digital solutions, AI, all of these things that are becoming available now and opening up. So it's not just looking at a green investment and then it has a premium, but it's the whole thing. How can we do things better?
Yeah. What the similarity between the sort of the Coca-Cola, I'm thinking here for the shipping industry, the similarity between the Coca-Cola and perhaps the Ikea is you're part of the car. Your products are part of what's on board a ship, on a container ship. It may be some of the containers on a container ship, but yours, Lars, Erik, that is 100% the cargo. So you've got a return leg that's empty.
Oh yeah, we have a less than 50% utilization of our ships, because we always sail back empty.
Yeah.
We do maybe 2 or 3 discharge ports, and then we sail back empty. So, and there's no way we can abate that, because you don't put anything else on a cement ship. And I think one of the challenges there is there's only so much we can do with improving our logistics setup and so on. So at some point, we've come so far that, okay, the only thing left to do now is to change fuels. And I think I've never heard the expression fast followers before, but that's, yeah, I'm sure that they'd like to hear that, those who are number 2. But I'm just wondering, if it's not a case of can we afford to be first movers, I just don't want to be the last one. If we're the last cement company in the world to go green, we're out of business. And I'm wondering, I mean, you guys are in very, very much more kind of hugely competitive industries, much more branded industries. Isn't it the same in consumer business? I mean, you can't be seen as the last company to tackle Scope 3 emissions. So, how
we are expected to be the first one.
You're expected to be the first.
Yeah, we have to.
Oh.
Yeah, we cannot sit and wait for the others to move. No.
Yeah, there's consumer pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, how big? We talk about it, but how big is consumer pressure? How much does a Coca-Cola drinker or one of the other products you've got really sort of put pressure on you? How much does somebody who goes into Ikea put pressure on, or sort of like say, we want it to be green? That's
I would say, first of all, I would say this is very much part of our DNA as a company to do that.
Yeah.
This is not about our customers telling us. We want to do it. We believe it's the right thing to do. So we're in it for that. And again, the customers expect us to do it, but they are maybe not saying we want exactly this green, 100% green transportation. I mean, transportation, our part is about 5% of the total Ikea carbon footprint. Ocean shipping is about 2%. So it's a small percentage, but super important. That is why we are putting so much effort into it. But this is the right thing to do.
and you do the.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reputation equation that says that if you have a high reputation, then that will have a purchase intent at a certain level. So you need to, as you say, you need to deliver on it. They expect us to do the right thing. But then to say if we have a 100% recycled PET bottle, people don't go buy that specific bottle because it's 100%.
Yeah.
But they buy because of the brand, because they know we're doing the right stuff, and then we are being the first mover in general, not specifically on the solution itself.
Did Coca-Cola at one point used to import CO2? You have to ship CO2 to make the bubbles to go into the Coca-Cola.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got you operate. Do you actually operate a CO2 carrier or CO2 ship?
We
With consumer grade CO2.
Yeah. We get CO2 from Sweden. Yes.
From Sweden. Okay. Thought so.
It's interesting. I just wanted to mention when we talk about climate, we talk about cost of action and cost of inaction. And you can kind of look at that the same with your consumers, right? So that's also why you want to be a first mover, because there's also a branding value of the cost of inaction if you are a big company.
Exactly.
So that's exactly also how we look at, like, it should not be the talk about what's the cost of doing something for climate. It's really the cost of inaction is going to be much higher. And you can really kind of put that on the same story on consumers.
Yeah. But within the World Economic Forum, you mentioned the list of companies that you've got on board. Are you bringing in a lot more companies, particularly shipping companies? Is that sort of really picking up in terms of the interest? Because there's one thing to say there's the regulations, but here we're talking about going above the regulations. So I'm just curious, particularly in this geopolitical world that we've got today, whether companies are just looking to maintain a sort of a legal basis in terms of regulatory compliance, doing what they need to do, or whether there are still a lot of companies that are willing to step above that low benchmark.
So since we launched FMC, we did grow it quite a lot. But I think you need to keep in mind also that we're working towards 2030. This is really what are we going to do before 2030? The long-term goal is, of course, 2050. We've seen a shift in the shipping industry. We've also seen more joining, but we've also been we have 102 companies in First Movers Coalition across 7 different sectors. First movers are unique. Like if everyone can join this group, it's no longer the first movers. That's kind of where it's just everybody. Yeah. And it remains an ambition to kind of get those success stories out there and make sure that it's like this is what others can do as well. And how do you really kind of foster that collaboration across some of the sectors as well? So I'm also quite. Like we actually have 3 Norwegian companies in the shipping sector. We have Yara, we have Hyaus, we have Wallenius Wilhelmsen, and we've seen also collaboration among them. So that's why I'm also so keen on the collaboration on the value chain within shipping, but also hugely among aviation and shipping, or aviation, trucking, shipping. Because then instead of talking about that we're going to be competing from some of these for hydrogen or for some of these resources for clean tech, we can talk about creating even stronger demand signals that can actually boost the market even further.
Yeah.
And for all of you, you don't use only one mode of transport. You use several modes of transport, and it doesn't help to just decarbonize shipping. It needs to be across your transport modes.
And in terms of, sorry, there's a little sort of quick question as well. To join the First Movers Coalition, do you have had to have become a first mover, or do you join and then become a first mover?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
So I think we've had different kind of entrance into that. We've both had the one, like Maersk was part of the founding members in 2021 when we had 33 companies. Høegh Autoliners joined last year, and they've been scaling up very fast on what they've been doing. And we've also not really said, as we both have companies that are pursuing the ammonia track. We have companies that are pursuing methanol track. The bottom line is, of course, that they're doing something. They're taking action. Well, you can't be a first mover and not take action.
Well, that's kind of the cynic in me, really.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of sort of groups that have emerged with this sort of branding, and it goes down to this greenwashing thing, and people say, I'm a member of this, I'm a member of that, and they just go, look at me, I must be green, but they're not actually doing anything. So that's why I was being a little bit cynical about asking, can you join the First Movers Coalition with a promise to be a first mover, but then actually be one of those followers later on?
You can, but then you risk your consumers judging you, right?
Yeah.
So you can, but then you would. So the way to join First Movers Coalition is a CEO commitment. So it's a and where it really differentiates is that within shipping specifically, you commit to saying we're going to buy 5% of our fuels will be zero emission by 2030, or if you're a cargo owner, it's 10% of what you move. If you're the CEO and you sign to that, you don't want to be judged by your consumers either. Yeah. But it is true that a lot of these initiatives are clearly, they're voluntary. But they're voluntary to extent that nobody wants to lose their, nobody wants to harm their reputation.
Harm their reputation. Right? But the global economy may influence how they can actually invest in something. They could excuse themselves and say, oh, it's a bad market, I'm going to only do 3%, 2%.
We've not seen that yet.
You haven't?
But I definitely think that from 2021, when a lot of things happened in Glasgow, and until now, the world has changed a lot. So I agree with you, but we've not seen that. I continue to see very brave companies that are still kind of pushing forward. I think Kerry also, Secretary Kerry said it earlier in another conference, right? That when we're seeing certain governments taking a step back, then you sometimes see the companies stepping up. Yeah. But I'm not a blue-eyed, naive girl either, even though I am blue-eyed. So I totally follow where you're getting to here. That obviously, like, let's see this action also coming through.
Yeah. But I think it's important what you touch on there, that when some countries or some political movements are blowing one way, then we as companies, as first movers, we need to step up, because we see that the consumers will still judge us. And we build ships, or this whole meeting here at Lillestrøm builds ships that have a lifetime of 30 years. I mean, certain presidents will be dead and buried by the time these ships are built. I mean, or at least are sailing. So we take very long-term decisions because we're long-term companies. Coca-Cola has been around a long time, so has Ikea, so have we. We don't think short-term, so we can't really let short-term setbacks kind of stop us. And about greenwashing, I mean, we all live in fear of being green, of being called out for greenwashing, right? And a couple of years ago, maybe even just a couple of months ago, the fear of greenwashing was, you're saying you're doing something, but you're not doing anything. That's greenwashing. Yeah. Now we're seeing, you're saying you're just complying. You're just doing enough. You're meeting 3.2% because that's what IMO says, or you're meeting 2.5% because that's what the city of Oslo says. That's greenwashing now.
So doing the minimum. Yeah. That low benchmark.
Yeah, and I mean, we are also consumers on a company level, right? We are customers. That's a very unique position. We cater to customers, but we are customers at the same time. And we have suppliers who come to us and kind of boastfully say, we are compliant. And we have some pretty hardcore purchasers on our side of the table, and they say, that's not enough, because the benchmark is moving. And if you're going to be always kind of compliant, then you're always going to be at the back of the bus. And none of us sitting here today would have the careers we have if we just passed at school.
Yep.
You have to excel just a little bit to get forward somewhere. And I think that's what we're seeing now is, you could call it first movers, you can call it fast followers, but those who are just compliant and just complying with the bare minimum, they're losing out.
Yeah. And I do see that even amongst shipping companies. I see shipping companies that label themselves compliant with all IMO regulations. It's like, of course you are. We're going to run out of time there. So Elisabeth, the last words, please, from you here now in terms of meeting that 2030 goal that was it 2030? I can't remember.
Yes,
now.
that's the milestone on our way to net zero.
Yeah. That was part of the question is, you've got 2030. Really, everybody's trying to look at 2050, but we seem to be becoming slightly myopic. Are we too focused on 2030 now? Is it time we started to look further afield?
I think,
like you said, it's only 5 years away.
I think we need to look at both those time frames with the same focus and intensity. We need to reduce emissions now. We need to reach the 2030 targets, and we need to go to the net zero. We need to do both. We don't have the luxury to choose that we look, further ahead than that. And we need to do both.
Good.
Agree.
You agree?
Yeah.
Good. Good. It's 4 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, can we say a big thank you to the panel? Thank you very much. Usually around now at 4 o'clock at Lillestrøm, somebody starts playing some band music, which is why we stop at 4, because most of them start having parties. Thank you very much. That's it for today.